Body bougie, latest trends and fashions. I'd rather keep it a buck, 100 if you ask me. I was trying to pay the bills just like last week. I was trying to sell a deal just like last week. Trying to run plays and run it up like the mathletes. It's in my DNA.
Back again with another exclusive episode, man, on Perfecting Progression. Definitely excited to have another special guest here on season 2, episode 2, Sweat Equity with my guy Kunle Ayinde. But before we hop into things, I'm gonna pass the mic on over to him so he can kind of introduce himself before we, tap into all of the good topics and discussions that we're gonna have today.
Appreciate you having me. Known Dior for a little minute, man. Go back from the college days. I'm Kunle, CEO of Sweat Equity Performance. Just here to, give you guys some game, have a good conversation with my boy, man.
For sure. And Kunle, again, man, I definitely appreciate you for having me here at the N1 Motion facilities, and also just kind of, again, being able to kind of represent the brand of Sweat Equity. I know last year, might have been last year or the year before that, I know we did a shoot together for your brand. That was definitely, dope for me to kind of come out and put on some of the products and just kind of see what you had going on. So I definitely appreciate you for having me, be a part of that, and then for you to return the favor of being on my platform as I look forward to grow, this podcast, which I think it can be definitely an impactful, platform for the community of Minnesota and many other, communities.
Yeah, man, that was dope. Yeah, we had my boy Leo. He's doing big things. I think he's like the head of directive, like operations of media at LSU now.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's doing big things there. So
he was at the U.
He was at the U. Then I know he did something with like Uninterrupted too. So he's been moving on up in that media world. So shout out to Leo too, Leo the creator. He was doing big things on that photo shoot we had. That was probably that was maybe like 2 years ago. I would say we did that. Yeah. Was that one of your first?
That was one of my first shoots. I mean, I never did it before. Kunle, just to kind of give y'all a little insight, Kunle had hit me up, and this is kind of like around the time when I officially moved back to Minnesota. And, that's one thing that we're going to talk about is our connection history, how I know Kunle and things of that nature. But he hit me up. He was letting me know that with his brand Sweat Equity, he had some things going on. And he was like, I know you work out a lot, you stay consistent in the gym, which we're going to talk about that a lot with, making sure that people, are staying healthy. Why is it important to have that in your regimen specifically? But he hit me up, and I came on, and it was good. It was me, and it was one other individual that was a part of it, and it was dope. And I appreciate it. But yeah, man, let's talk about our connection history. But I guess before we talk about our connection history, kind of give the audience a little, background of yourself, you being a Minnesota native, where you grew up. Just let us know about, who you are and, your background a little bit.
Okay, so born and raised Minnesota. Was born in North Minneapolis off Colfax. And then after growing up, my parents are Nigerian, they're immigrants. So we moved from North Minneapolis to Brooklyn Park. And that's when I went to, elementary school. And then from there, we moved from Brooklyn Park to Blaine. And that's when I started playing sports. But I really didn't start playing football until high school. I was playing baseball, and then I was playing basketball. I really like basketball. The Minnesota basketball scene is pretty big. I mean, as you kind of learn as going in Minnesota. Even back then, I didn't really know as much, but I was really into basketball for the most part. My mom didn't really want me to play football.
Really?
But my oldest brother already played football, so I was already interested in it, but I didn't really play it. Then, I was playing basketball, got to high school.
What high school?
Blaine High School.
Blaine High School,
So my freshman year, low-key, I had to finesse to start playing football. So my mom didn't want me to play, but my pops didn't really care. So I was like, okay. So I got my pops to sign all the papers because he was going to pay for it. So I'm like, all right. So I told him to sign, but then the day of, I didn't tell my mom. First practice, it was like an offensive, defensive camp. Told Mom, you got to bring me to practice. She's like, what practice? I said, football practice. She said, what? And then, so I was like 30 minutes late to practice. And mind you, I don't know how to put on no pads, no nothing.
Was she so against it? Didn't mean to cut you off, Kunle. Was she so against it because of the high risk of injury? What was she worried about?
A little bit of that. I would say a little bit, just being African, you don't really know a lot of stuff about American sports and things of that nature. And I think just the injury stuff was kind of just something she didn't want to, you know. But for me, I was just kind of convincing her, you can get injured just walking out your house. You can roll your ankle, break your ankle. So knock on wood. But injuries happen in life. That's just a part of it. So kind of getting her past through that point. Now football is one of her favorite sports. So so went there, played football my freshman year. It was kind of new to me. I played running back. And then my sophomore year, I went to varsity, played corner. It was first time ever playing defense, and it was on varsity. So it was a little bit of adjustment getting used to that stuff.
Yep.
Then from there, still playing basketball, but I wasn't really getting recruited like that.
Yeah.
In terms of like for football. But we had another player, Duke Anyanwu, which I'm sure you remember.
Yep. Tight end, right?
Tight end, yep.
So he went to Blaine as well?
He went to Blaine too. But
how was Blaine? I didn't mean to cut you off, but how was Blaine, I guess their sports overall?
I mean, football, we were actually pretty good because like we went to before we call it the Prep Bowl, which is like the state championship.
Yep.
We went there like right before I got to high school. The football team was already like making it to the playoffs and stuff. So we had a solid like foundation growing up. So we was usually either going to state or like in a section championship, like the round before you get to state. Yep. So we were pretty good growing up. We already had like maybe always a couple like maybe one person go D1 and maybe a couple D2s. But we weren't like a super powerhouse, I would say, like maybe like a Wayzata or Eden Prairie or anything like that. But we had a lot of kids in the school. It's like 3,000 kids in the school. So you're going to find some kids that can play football and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was growing up in there. Duke was a quarterback, and I was a receiver.
I didn't know that.
So he was my quarterback.
I'm learning some new stuff.
And he was getting recruited by the U, but I wasn't really getting recruited by the U. So it was kind of like, in my mind, I was like, because I went to the games with him before, because like when you go, you can bring friends.
Yep.
So I went, but they weren't really recruiting me, because even my senior year, like I went to all the Gopher camps and stuff like that with Coach Kill. Back in shout out to Coach Kill.
Yep. Shout out, Coach.
Yeah, I went up to the Coach Kill camps. Still wasn't really getting recruited like that. Like I was getting some D2 looks, and then even my senior year, I went to one of the games, and the coaches was just looking at me like, yeah, just make sure you send in your film. And I'm just like, damn, shouldn't you guys already know, like have a little bit of my film and stuff? So I knew I wasn't really getting recruited like that. But then my senior year, it was a little bit after signing day, or maybe 2 weeks before signing day.
Yep.
Coach Killett came to my school,
and
like I got called down to the office, like, yeah, come talk to your coach.
Yep.
And he was in there with Coach Reeves. I don't know if you remember Coach Reeves.
Coach Reeves,
yeah, the tight end coach.
Right.
Yeah, those two was in the office, and they were just like, yeah, we're going to offer you preferred walk-on. Is this something you want to do? And for me, I was like, shit. For me, basically, it was like I already knew I wanted to be in that Division I, so there wasn't really any turning back. So it was just kind of like, if I'm going to get the opportunity, then I'm just going to go with it.
Yep.
So I didn't really hesitate. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
So then walked on. And the walk-on experience, I would say, definitely is a little different back then than it was now. I was just telling some of the guys on one goal. So like my freshman year, when I was a walk-on, we would have breakfast. You had to check in by a certain time. You remember the check-ins. All my football guys, the check-ins. And you could either get you had two options. You had a smoothie or you had a bagel.
Yep.
But for walk-ons, I guess it was against NCAA rules to get both. So if you would go there, you would have to either get a smoothie or a bagel. It wasn't like you couldn't get them both.
Really?
Or like after practice, we'd have.
I was so small, like I wouldn't even know something like that.
That's what I'm saying. So the walk-on life was way different.
So before we get there, let's dress something up, just so my audience can understand the actual connection that we have here. So Kunle, again, he's the CEO of Sweat Equity, but this is my guy. We played ball at University of Minnesota, same position, safety group. When I came in as a freshman, he was already there. And I think, Kunle, you graduated high school what year?
2013.
2013.
So it's like 2 years older than you, probably.
Yep. So I'm 2015. But to give, just to kind of give some clarity, yes, Kunle was definitely, he was a walk-on at the University of Minnesota. But when I got there, to be totally honest, one, I didn't know he was a walk-on just because, our group, to be honest, we had an elite group.
Yeah.
It was a very, very competitive group within the safeties and the corners. So usually you can kind of tell some of the people that are kind of, what do I want to say? Usually you could tell a walk-on.
Yeah.
So when I looked at you, I'm like, no, he not really giving me the walk-on vibes. He ain't really giving me the walk-on energy. And especially with you were especially a person who I was like looking up to, trying to learn the plays from. It was, again, I was learning from a lot of guys that was in front of me, but it was still like a collaborative and healthy space for us to all learn and be around each other. Right.
Yeah, it was competitive.
It wasn't like it was super competitive. I ain't rocking with you. We did so much stuff together.
Right.
On the field, off the field, just making sure like you being a good mentor, going to parties, doing all types of stuff. We just had a good group.
Yeah.
Had a real good group. So just wanted to kind of give some clarity, from our audience, but specifically, yes. Kunle has a very, very unique experience, I think, for you guys to kind of know about when we talk about, especially the platform of perfecting progression, him being a walk-on and then turning that into something that pretty much amounted into, dreams. He talked about Coach Reeves and these coaches coming in and telling him that, he had a preferred walk-on. Is this something that you wanted to do? 9 times out of 10, all of us as youngsters or young athletes, we have dreams at playing at a certain level. But we also have dreams to, attain certain things, put the grind in, put the work in. So just wanted to kind of give that a little bit. Didn't mean to cut you off, but yes,
no
let's go back into the story. Kind of take it back over where you were talking about the nutrition, pretty much the nutrition, certain things that you were limited to. I never knew that.
Yeah. It was crazy because like even so, the team dinners, you would go practice.
Yep.
Honestly, the whole day would be like, you wake up, you go practice, come through. We'll go before that, like back to when we first got in my summer. And then, so I was a walk-on, started doing stuff with the older guys, the Bodies, the Seth Thompsons, all those guys that got drafted.
Yep.
So I'm picking up stuff from Eric Murray, Brock Vereen. I'm picking up stuff for them. And then we would do that 6 a.m. workout. And then we'd have to go to class for 3 hours.
Yep.
And then for me, I had a walk-on mentality, but I was more like, I know I can get a scholarship because like athleticism-wise, they were more athletic and more polished, but it wasn't like that much of a difference to me where it's like, man, I don't think I can ever catch up to them. So I would wake up every morning to alarm and say, you're going to get a scholarship. Then after those 3 hours of class, I would go do a workout by myself for 2 hours.
Yep.
And then after that, we would have afternoon lifts.
Yep.
And then we might do some captain's practices and then, go about the next day. So I did that every day for like 3 months until fall camp. And then, I did that probably for like 2.5 years until I got my scholarship.
So those were the goals that you set out for yourself.
Yeah,
those were things that you were being super intentional around with, making sure that, again, you didn't put yourself in a space for yourself to feel bad or,
there's no pity.
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? It was just more or less like, don't get me wrong, I went through those setbacks of things like, am I supposed to be here?
Right.
But I had good coaches like Coach Kill. I remember one time I didn't really get a lot of food back then. So like I sometimes would sneak up into the facility, get some put some snacks in my bag, eat some stuff there. And Coach Kill was up there one time and I think Seth Thompson just got drafted to the Dolphins. And he was just like, so what's the difference between, just going through it. What's the difference between you and this person?
Yep.
I was like, not much.
Yep.
What's the difference between you and this person? Not much. He's like, there's your answer. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's
you gotta trust in yourself and believe that if you're competing with those type of people, you can be there too. And then that's when he told me, he's like, if you can prove your worth, we'll give you a scholarship.
Exactly.
And then that next year, I'll probably say, because Seth got drafted.
When we came in.
And then was my redshirt freshman year, I only played special teams. And then the next following year, I started for like 13 games. And then like, that's why I said the whole mainframe of the NCAA and like this whole scholarship thing is way different. Like I had to, after the bowl game, we won the bowl game, I had to text Coach Clay's like, yo, I need to meet with you. Like, cause I'm like, okay, I just started 13 games. Like I need a scholarship kind of thing. So I met with him the day after the bowl game in his office at like 9 in the morning. Pretty much told him like, this is what you guys told me. I feel like I lived up to those promises. And he's like, yeah, okay, son, we're gonna give you a scholarship. I'll call over the papers. And that's how I got a scholarship.
Yep.
Like it wasn't no like people falling out of the sky and egg hunts and all that type of stuff. Now, not knocking that stuff, but I'm like, it wasn't as glamorous back then when I was, got that transition from a walk-on to a scholarship. But even through that, you still got to prove your place, you know what I'm saying? So still had to play, you know what I'm saying? They're still competitive. So I think that just kind of changed my mentality of, your perception of how others can like dictate,
right.
Your path moving forward. But if you're like really hyper-focused and really intentional about things like, and putting signs up, putting things in your environment that reminds you constantly of what you're going towards, it'll have a big lasting effect on your pursuit towards your goals and dreams and stuff like that.
Fact. And I would say too, I want to kind of like, piggyback off some of the, trials and tribulations and things that you persevered through, because one, when you go through those type of situations, it does mold your mindset for not only the current time that you're in, but also for the future.
Right,
so
exactly.
Once you're, again, like I wanted to talk about, you talked about your goals, but I also want to talk about dreams. Most of us that, have the opportunity to play Division I, D1, AA, D2, we still have dreams of course, if you really, really love football, like you have dreams to go to the next level and play at the NFL level. We all have dreams to do that. But there are certain things that are in place like specifically, I'm talking to my football brother, but probably other sports as well. But there are certain things within our regimen and our routine that's going to help us transition over into the real world and be 1% better or one step ahead, than the normal citizen.
Right.
So I kind of wanted you to, talk a little bit more about how that that pivotal piece of you persevering through. Again, you came on as a walk-on, but eventually you had that talk with Coach Kill, and he asked you, like, what's difference from you and, XYZ? There's no difference, and you put out goals for yourself, and then you persevered, and you started 13 games. How did that, going from that point and then starting, how did that change your mindset, not only for football, but also as a business owner, being in that type of space as well?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I would say it just created a certain, a different set of belief systems within myself, because like you can always set out the goal, but even in the process, you might not even obtain the goal sometimes always. So the person you become in that process kind of will shape you towards things that it allows you to not be afraid of setting goals and not necessarily making them. Because I mean, it's not like this goal was solely just to get a scholarship, it was, the next. Now it's once you break the goal, you got to set new goals. So the next goal is like, okay, now it's the NFL, or even that probably wasn't even the NFL. It's more or less, okay, I got a scholarship. Now let's have a really good football year. Then if that goes well, then the next goal will be, NFL. And I got an opportunity, got a mini rookie invite with the Vikings. And even then, just being in the room of like, with NFL people and being technically, quote unquote, in the NFL to a substandard, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I got a scholarship or was with a whole training camp or nothing like that, but just it's kind of surreal just seeing what dreams and things can manifest to, even if you don't expect them to, you know what I'm saying? So I think that just kind of, like I said, changed my belief system. So like even transitioning to the business world or the quote unquote corporate world, I think you see other people in the world and see like, you can kind of, for me, I can kind of like, not label, but like, okay, I can tell like this person maybe doesn't have the dreams and aspirations to grow within that field or industry. And there's places where I cannot exploit, but that competitive edge of like, yeah, okay, they're not really eating right there. It's my turn to go show my worth, show my value, and move up the ladder that way. I think it kind of shapes your mentality towards like ways where you can use those advantages and the discipline that you created within yourself to get some of those things. I think it really kind of shows, and I think that's why a lot of people who are, college athletes transition really well to like business and things of that. It's not always easy, don't get me wrong, because when you lose that main thing, that was the main thing, whether it be a sport or something like that, you definitely go through a little, an ebb of like finding yourself. Because it's like, where am I without the sport? You know what I'm saying? Because you've been so attached to it for so long. So I think finding through that little wind and finding what is my passion or what's something that's close that can give me that same feel of like how I was when I was competing. And I think business for me was what kind of like, that's why I dove into the entrepreneurship world, because it was something I could still compete with. I compete with myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm competing with myself every day. Okay, how do I can get my business marketed the right way? How can I get my stuff in front of people? How can I sell this? How can I do that? So I think that's how it shaped my mindset towards, transitioning towards.
And I'm glad you talked about that piece, because really, if you ask me, I feel like all collegiate athletes, I don't want to say specifically football, but this can be any sport. But since I specifically want to talk about football because that's the background that I come from, what made me create my platform, I've talked about this countless times, but it is a period of us only knowing one thing for so many years. Like that's our identity.
Right.
And once we kind of get done with playing football, we still want to be attached to it, but now we're kind of in that phase of, okay, once we graduate or once we kind of, are in that space of, growing and becoming a young man and being a young adult, now we're trying to figure out almost a new identity without without the sport that we love, football. So, you kind of took it into where I was about to go now, is just figuring out your purpose. Because I do feel like once we kind of detach, in a sense, from the game or the sport that we love specifically, now it's time for us to kind of figure out what are the areas that we can excel in, what do we need to get better in, what are the areas that we are somewhat not as strong in. And, you know the saying, like, it's good to find out the areas that you are somewhat weak in or comfortable in, so you can become the best individual, the best Kunle, the best Dior that you can be. So I think being in that space at that time, I think I knew, especially, again, I talked about it before, but just kind of going through that COVID year, it was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because a lot of kids, the kids that did come out that year and that went into 2020, they didn't have a chance to have their pro day or whatever. But for me, I kind of looked at it as a sense of like, okay, like I can't hold on too long for something that I know that's probably not going to be around the rest of my life, because it is a passion, it is a dream that I still have, but I know there's other areas that I can flourish.
Right.
So being in that space of time, I wasn't thinking about the podcast, but I was thinking about how do I perfect progression? How do I, stand out? Just like how you said, like, if this person, somewhat to a certain degree, if this person is not, kind of taking advantages of what they need to be doing, well, I'm gonna make sure that I show my skill set,
right,
so I can shine a little bit. And I think that's the competitive juices that comes from how we grew up, or the nature. Even our room, again, our defensive back room was so elite, and the coaching that we had in that room kind of molded.
Saville, man.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Saville. But it molded us, though.
Yeah,
it really molded our minds. So I guess my question again. So your purpose, like what? I guess what made you kind of figure out your purpose, transitioning into, wanting to, and I don't want to speak for you, but like wanting to, I guess, in a sense, wanting to help people figure out their health, or wanting to push them, because I don't want to get to sweat equity just yet, but like there was a space that Kunle had to be to figure out what exactly his purpose was to push forward as I want to be an entrepreneur. So that's why I kind of wanted to ask you.
Okay, so yeah, I think for me, I was willing to try a lot of things after college.
Yep.
So like, I worked with Affleck for a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I did some like short-term disability line insurance stuff. Like,
don't downplay. I'm looking at your face, like, man. But it
was just something, just to get going. I knew I couldn't just sit.
Right.
And just sulk for something that didn't happen. You
gotta lay the foundation.
So I got to find something. Right. So I was willing to try and fail.
Yep.
Or even just try to see if I can obtain a skill set and then develop it to something else.
Yep.
So I started with, like, honestly, even before that, I probably would say I was doing I was doing trading. So I was doing like the Forex stuff, building the network, because I had a big network of people.
Yep.
So I was doing that kind of stuff. Built actually a solid team of like 50 people on my team. So in that process, I was going to different seminars.
Yep.
Like, meeting people, just listening to different people talk, different successful people, and success leaves clues. Mm-hmm. So essentially just learning from people who are already doing something successful.
Yep.
I can't fail doing that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to learn something.
Networking is always great. Yeah.
So just doing that, I listened to Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Magic Johnson, Robert, what's his name? John C. Maxwell, like bunch of different like successful people. Just taking notes. I would annotate, read a bunch of books. Just really dove into personal development essentially. And through that process, like I said, I did the Affleck thing, selling insurance. I didn't really have a passion for it.
Yep.
Then I worked at a gym, similar to N1 Motion, but it was with another guy named Paul Jones, and he was doing his own training. So I was helping him do training with like volleyball teams and different things like that. Still trying to stay close to sports.
Yep.
Then I started doing some coaching, coached at De La Salle football. Then went back to my high school, coached football. Then I coached track. So I was like, okay, in the process, I'm kind of building a network of not necessarily clients, because I didn't really do the training thing yet, or I wasn't really making clothes or anything yet. I was just kind of, I like to be around sports.
Yep.
I knew I wanted to help people. And then I also was doing personal development. So I was like able to, take what I learned and implement it within younger minds and, be an influence in that way type of thing.
Yep.
So as I'm going through that process, I was, ironically, I was just, I was working out and stuff. And I was taking pictures after the workout, because I was always like, mentally I was kind of like making fun of everybody. It's not really a workout unless you take the picture, you get the little justification picture.
Right.
And then I used to, when I was doing the personal development stuff, I always kept hearing real estate people talk about sweat equity. And I would just take the picture like, hey, I'm getting in my sweat equity, just like kind of flipping terms, because I kind of realized too, like every like entrepreneur in that world, they had their own little like kind of catchphrase or something that kind of like popped out to people where they could brand it and market it. I'm like, oh, this is something cool. So I started taking pictures like that after I was working out. And then I was out and about one time, and somebody like said like, Mr. Sweat Equity. Somebody said that to me. I'm like what the hell? Like, but it kind of clicked in my head like, okay, this might be something.
Yep.
And then the dude that I was working at, Paul Jones, he said some kids were like asking if they could tag like Sweat Equity in one of their photos after they took a workout. And he's like, bro, you might need to put that on a shirt or something.
Right.
Rock with it. Because, I mean, if they're asking for it, there's already a demand. You already created some kind of demand.
Yep.
So from then, it was just kind of like, all right, I'm going to figure this thing out, start doing some more private training on the side.
Yep.
And then in that process, went to Miami and then came back with my boy David Hicks. Came back, and his cousin had like a Cricut machine to show me how to like do some of the Sweat Equity stuff just to make shirts.
Yep.
And from that, I just made a couple shirts, started posting and doing pictures like that. But like I said, I was doing mainly training. It wasn't really the clothes.
Yep.
And then in that process, I just started falling in love with just the process of just the entrepreneurship thing. Not trying to dive too much into Sweat Equity quite yet, but just in the process of that, it probably was like a 2, maybe 3-year process after of just finding out, okay, I like to help people, one.
Yep.
I like to be around sports, too. And being a person or a bridge to certain resources and things that some of these kids or some people that I didn't have when I was younger, that was very like fulfilling for me.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think in that process of, doing this, the personal development, which I think is really huge, because, a lot of people don't know themselves.
Yep.
A lot of people can't just sit in a room with themselves and their thoughts and really like, okay, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to get at. And even if I take that path to go do it, if I don't reach it, am I that hard on myself? Do I just go in this deep hole, like finding, doing different things like that, really meditating, changing your environment, going to go see different things, and really creating a good version of you and being confident in with you, and then going to pursue something really helps. It gets you, on a good path. You're not steering left and right. And even if you do, your mindset and your awareness of self brings you back.
Yep.
So I think taking that time to really develop myself personally through reading, meditation, working out, things of that nature really helped me like shape my vision towards. It made it a lot clearer. Let's just say that.
For sure. And thank you for kind of like, walking us through your path of figuring out your purpose. And again, we still are all in our path of figuring out our purpose too, but it's helping you clear things up as you get older. But I really want my audience to know, like, when Kunle was talking about personal development and things of that nature, like, we all are going to go through a phase of where we need to buckle down and figure out there are going to be areas where we're going to have to fail. But it's okay for us to fail because those are the areas.
Fail faster.
Right. But and what he means by that is don't be afraid to go out and try things, because at the end of the day, yes, it might be something that you might not be, super good at, or you might not feel like that you're just, the top dog in, or whatever it may be, but it's gonna help you in your self-development of becoming a better person, of figuring out your true purpose in your everyday life specifically. Things don't happen overnight. And that's one thing that, this newer generation is kind of getting into as well, of just kind of, even with social media being around, they see a lot of things on their phone, and they think it's an easy grab. It's not. You got
microwave society.
Yes, and I talked about that a number of times on different episodes with different guests. But that is the thing. What Kunle just said. Things cannot be microwaved. You have to put the work in. You have to grind, and that is essentially. I always tell it to my kids that I coach as well, is it's almost like making a bank deposit. You want to make sure those days that you are investing in yourself, you're taking serious, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a great return on the back end. So that's really, really important. And again, I definitely appreciate you kind of walking us through your purpose. That was very, very helpful. And as I kind of transition and kind of go into, a little bit about health now. So I know you kind of talked about, you kind of, being in the space of training individuals. Again, you talked about personal development, prioritizing self-care. One thing that kind of stood out to me as well is you getting done with your workout and you taking a picture, almost in a sense of like you like, again, you were kind of joking around saying that, like, if you don't take a picture, then it's like you didn't get the work in. But again, what you were doing, you were building your brand. Like, that's one thing that might go missed if we didn't highlight it enough. But what you were doing was you already had a group of people that you were networking with. You almost had a good number of followers, and people were liking the content or the things that you were putting out there for them to be motivated. Now people are like, damn, like, when I get done working out, I feel like I need to post a picture. Now, again,
right.
you don't need to post a picture, but at the same time, you have people looking at you as a person of, who to look up to. Like, you're almost a mentor. So now it's like, okay, sweat equity. Kunle always talking about this. You're making me feel, it's almost like a attraction thing, talent attraction thing. Now you're making me feel like I need to go to the gym first and foremost. Before we even talk about sweat equity, you're making me feel like I need to better myself.
Right.
That's a good thing. So now that I feel like I need to get to the gym, now you're kind of helping me with my mindset. And then you kind of talked about it's kind of hard for people to kind of be locked in or kind of being in a room by themselves. Like, sometimes people do need that support. So what you were doing was you were doing a number of different things in many different areas for other people, and you were building your brand.
Right.
So that's what I want my audience to know. Like, hey, like, sometimes, like, things are not going to be, like, building your brand, networking, doing things, and going out and making sure that you're doing things that you're necessarily not familiar with. Again, I mean, Kunle kind of talked about how he had to learn from others and read and do things of that nature, but what he was doing was making sure that he was learning so that he can, again, be a leader. That's one thing that anybody that I have on my platform, I look at them as leaders so I can learn from them, vice versa. So, as we transition, like I was saying, is I want to talk about the importance around health. So when we think about, before we get to sweat equity, I mean, I know one big thing Kunle is into is exercising. So kind of talk to us about the importance around exercising and how it can help, of course, physically and mentally a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I would say for me, one, just being around it so much with sports, exercising was just kind of ingrained into my regimen, you know? And even, I was talking about it earlier today, like going a month or 2 months at a time, like, of just not working out, like, for me, I can get, like, mentally, I can get a little foggy. Or naturally, I just innately, something just feels off. So, like, just getting that in my day-to-day routine, and I'm not saying I'm no CrossFit workout 6 times a week kind of person. 3 to 4 solid workouts, a couple of days of cardio, and I'm good for me because I know what I need. But at the end of the day, it's a thing that helps my mental more than anything. Like, the physical attributions and looking at yourself in the mirror and feeling confident about yourself is big. Don't get me wrong. But there's some people who don't. And in that process, it might not happen overnight, and you might not ideally get what the perfect body of you. And I think that's what a lot of people go through, all these surgeries and stuff, because they're trying to get this perfect, chiseled whatever. But sometimes you just need to, celebrate the progression of your body in general, one, but also maybe that six-pack isn't for you. Maybe it isn't, Maybe you're not genetically able to get to that six-pack.
Right.
But if you're able to get, a couple abs, something to progress from where you were, celebrate that too. You know what I'm saying? I think we're really, as a society, we can be, like, overly judgmental of ourselves as we go apart our fitness journey. So I think that's just big for me. Like I said, it helps my mental, just have some clarity. 2, my physical. But also, I know it's something that we innately need, like, even just in business in general. Being able to serve people is something that will forever be around. Being able to have good health is something that will forever be around. Clothes is something that forever be around, since the beginning of time. So getting in those type of businesses, I think, and just shaping my business in terms of things that are, like, essentially shaped around my life helped me a lot just in the process. And I think just when you go with your family too, just looking at some of your family that have health problems later on in life. What if they would have taken that time to, do something a little bit earlier, walk the extra couple miles a day, take the stairs and something, and the longevity of something. We all want to be successful. We all want to be, rich. But if we don't have anybody to share it with because we don't have our health, it don't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? So, like, just the influence of the things you can do with health from a fitness standpoint, from your family, from your mindset, from even, you can turn into a business too, just in the same way I'm doing it. But just in that, there's so many facets of it that health, I think, is the center point of it, that if you don't have your health, there's a lot of things you can't, a lot of other things don't really matter. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just a key component that everybody has their own journey and path, but you need to take advantage of that. There's free tools for you to learn on how to get right. You know what I'm saying? How to just, and you don't have to be, like I said, the CrossFit guy. You can go up, like my dad, my mom, I tell them they're 60 going on 70. They don't need to be doing freaking burpees and whatnot. They blow their knee out.
Exactly.
Go walk for 30 minutes. Exactly. Walk there, walk back. Your heart rate's going to get you in a rate that you need to be for your age. So just finding that journey for yourself, I think, is crucial. But I know a lot of people deal with just the hardest part is taking that first step.
Taking that first
step to just being like, I need to go to the gym. Yeah, everybody knows they need to go work out, but it takes a lot for them to get to work out. So I think having some people around you that are being able to push you, but making that first step, I think, is huge. And then just finding consistency, putting reminders on your phone, stuff in your room to say like, hey, and it doesn't have to be a hard workout. Like I said, you could do push-ups in your bathroom. You can stretch or hold different like wall sits, different things like that. Just find out what works for you, but take care of your health, take care of yourself.
Yep. And I feel like, man, like, you know, when we talk about, you know, physically and mentally, I'm like, the more and more you talk about it, I feel like, again, we all want to look good. We all want to look good when we, you know, from working out. But I do feel like the percentage of what comes from getting in the gym or just doing an exercise, it helps us mentally more than physically, if you ask me. And then what you hit on as well is what I want people to understand is the longevity. I remember when I think once I kind of got done, you know, with you know, having that heavy regimen or heavy routine of getting up in the morning, going to work out with our football schedule. You know, once I kind of, you know, was finding other things to kind of do with exercise, I seen a lot of people, you know, going on walks. I was never a person that went on walks, bro. I swear. But when you talk about longevity, I feel like it is good for people our age and, you know, even younger. But as we get older, I feel like it is a space and time that people should find to kind of get out and exercise within the space of going on walks. When we talk about longevity, you know, because we all want to stay healthy. And like you said, we all want to make sure that the people we love, our family, friends, are around, you know, as long as they can when we talk about being healthy as they can. So one thing that you kind of talked about as well is just, or what I want to talk about as well is the support. I think some people, again, I think where we come from, with us having that regimen of working out, I really don't need a workout partner. I'm locked in mentally.
Internally motivated, yeah.
Right, I'm internally motivated, and the thing is, again, I know how much, and you talked about it, like being away from exercising a week, 2 weeks, a month, it's gonna mess with my mental. It's gonna mess with my mental. So now that I've been locked in for a number of years, I already know, like, I really don't need to work out with Kunle, but if I do work out with Kunle, we gonna get a good workout in. But I'm already locked in.
Right.
So some of these people, some of the individuals, you know, who, just like you said, it's hard to take that first step. So now it's like, you know, hey Kunle or hey whoever, you mind if I post this and tag Sweat Equity? They need some support.
Right.
They need some
a community.
They need a community.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you talked about that because, again, I think it is hard for people to make that first step, but what Kunle talked about, he was dropping jewels. It is good to understand the serious levels that comes from exercising. It's hard to take that first step, but again, I mean, I got my guy here, Tap In with Sweat Equity, which we're gonna talk about. But I'm glad he talked about it, and let's get right into it. And as you guys can see, I mean, I don't know if I kind of showed you guys what I had on. But again, my guy hooked me up, you know, with a nice fit, you know. Tap in with him. He definitely got. We probably gonna talk about more what he got on the way, but this was something that I copped. I want to say maybe a year ago, but definitely a nice little fit.
It look like the quality still there.
Yep. You know I keep good care of it, man. Sweat Equity, man. Make sure y'all tap in. But let's tap into, you know, your brand, Sweat Equity. You know, I guess before I kind of go into what I kind of want to ask you, kind of let us know how you found your way to Sweat Equity. What is Sweat Equity?
So essentially, like I was saying, when I was going through that process of that personal development stuff, that term Sweat Equity kept kind of popping up. And then as I'm training, started taking that marketing picture and labeling it, hey, Sweat Equity. Then my guy said, put it on a shirt. And like I said, I was doing training at the time, but it wasn't like, it was just training. So I'm like, I got some good, advice. I just make an LLC, business that out. So I had Sweat Equity Performance, but I wasn't really doing any clothing and branding. Then after about 2020 or 2021, I would say, came back maybe in March and started making shirts. Then I did like a pre-order link of like just sweatshirts I was making because I was just learning the process of making clothes. And then I probably like took another marketing video. Maybe I had like 20 sweatshirts. I probably sold 30 sweatshirts. And then took a video like, thanks for all the support, nothing crazy. Then after I post that on social media, I probably wake up the next morning and I'm getting pinged up like, yo, I want this sweatshirt. I need that one. Dang, I didn't know you were doing this, da-da-da-da-da. So that's when I was like, okay. I didn't really know much about the business of clothing and the process that it takes of like, making, I was just getting blank garments, heat pressing them down, and then, shipping it out, doing all the fulfillment and stuff myself. Created a Shopify, started that opportunity, and then, so I'm doing the training, then I'm doing the clothing, and then pretty much what the whole brand and the meaning of it, Sweat Equity Performance, meaning like anything in life worth having takes time and effort. Time being, your sweat, the time that you're building in, the hard work, and then the equity meaning the results that you get from that work. So it was just taking what that meaning meant for in real estate, which in real estate, it's pretty much the unseen hours that you're putting into the property that builds equity on the back end. So essentially, I just took that and just made my own metaphor of it and related it to health and fitness. So that's essentially what it is, like the brand and meaning. And then as we go, I'm just kind of the fitness and the clothing kind of works hand in hand because it's like as you work out, you need stuff to wear. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, these work. I'm not building. It's two different things, but they're working. They're vertically integrated. They can really work at the same time. So as I'm going through that, I'm starting to make different clothes. And like I said, it's a process. It's hard. It's hard because you got to find your niche. There's so many different things, but in business, you can learn from other people. You don't have to recreate the wheel. There's successful businesses like Gymshark and other things that I can go take ideas from and make it my own. So, and I realized like things like Nike, even like being in the sporting world when it comes to clothes, it's the silhouettes. It's how the garments make you feel compared to not always like the branding on it. But I think in my brand, I was able to do a little bit of both. I was able to get good garments, but also create like a meaning and a saying that people wanted to rep and represent. So I think just in the process, I'm still growing and learning, and we got late stuff dropping. I really haven't dropped, honestly.
It's been a minute, I feel
It's been a little minute because I've just been taking time to just like, just perfect the process. I think when I first started it, I kind of got a little bit in over my head in a sense because so it was right during that COVID time, and I was working with this brand called Super Wholesale Blank. Now they're super big. But back when I was working with them, they probably only had like 5,000 followers. So I was able to get my blanks, work with the manager directly, text him, but he was in Atlanta. But then in that process, everybody wanted to become an entrepreneur at that time. Everybody was getting a clothing brand. Everybody was making an LLC. PPPs was going crazy. So everybody is getting this influx of money and trying to do stuff with it. So in that process of maybe like a year of me trying to solidify the clothing aspect of the brand, they went from like 5,000 followers to maybe like 500,000 followers. So as I'm trying to get some of these clothes, in the process, I would have to get a lot more clothes than I even really was prepared for. Because if I didn't get it now and they were getting it from China, I wasn't able to get clothes for like a month sometimes. So like a sweatsuit like that, I might cop that. I used to be able to get, sample some out, wear some. So my whole marketing was, I'll get some samples, give it to some of the homies. Maybe some people will buy it, let them wear it out in public, get the feedback back. Okay, if they like it, let's double down on it. It was a pretty smooth process. But then when they started getting so much traction, I might not be able to get that. I might be able to get that sweatshirt one time in a month. So I had to buy like a bunch of shit in bulk. My bad. I don't know if it.
You good.
I had to buy a bunch of stuff.
Booming.
I had to buy a bunch of stuff in bulk. But even then, I don't think I was really ready for the bulk. So like in the process, I was learning a lot. Like I said, fail faster. I was failing through some of it, but I was learning more. And then when I started learning more about like blanks and wholesale blanks and brands, I was also realizing like, okay, when my business was down, serve people, right? So serve people by training. So I'm getting capital from that. But I'm also serving people because I'm working with other brands who maybe not know a lot about clothes. and I'm learning about it. So even N1 Motion, shout out my boy Rock, I'm working with his, so I'm doing some training with them, but I'm also helping them make their merch.
Yep.
So I'm learning through different fabrics and garments from helping other small businesses make their merch in the process. So I probably worked with like maybe 15 to 20 different brands, just helping them. And not saying it was like I was like the provider and their production source, but like I was doing small stuff, scale stuff for a lot of different brands. So it helped me learn a lot about clothing in the whole midst of things. So it's definitely been a journey. It has its ebbs and flows. And I would say if you are an entrepreneur and you are kind of working towards something, that don't be afraid, if you have a job and you're trying to start something, don't be afraid to keep the job until the new entrepreneurial gig is ready for you to quit the job. Because there's been times where I didn't have a job. Like even right now, I'm doing some property management during the day to fund some of the stuff that I do want to do creatively. You know what I'm saying? So don't be afraid to have to go do the job to get some consistent income so I can fund what it is I want to do in the back end. And also, if you don't essentially like know what you want to do, try to get a job within line of something you think you want to do. So I wanted to own a gym, but maybe I wasn't quite ready. Maybe I didn't know the finances behind the gym. So what did I go do? I went to get a job with a gym to understand what it takes to really do some of these things. So I think some people have these dreams and aspirations, and I get it. But sometimes you need to take those smaller steps so you can take a bigger step. Or sometimes maybe you need to take a step back or to the side before I can move forward, And I think taking those different things and learning those different things from different people who are successfully doing it helps in the journey in the process.
For sure. Yeah, you just dropped some jewels right there. And that's very, very important for people to kind of listen in on that, especially when we talk about entrepreneurship and building your brand. Sometimes people kind of want to stop everything that they're doing and saying, like, I want to go all in, which is not a problem.
It's not bad.
I'm not knocking anybody that is doing it and going that route. But what Kunle just broke down, I think I'm in that line. I feel like with being an entrepreneur, building your brand, I'm totally fine with having my hands in many different areas because in a sense, I do feel like I'm a natural networker. So there's things that I'm learning in areas that I'm putting my hands in that's still helping me for my ultimate purpose.
Right.
So I think what Kunle just said is very, very important. That was definitely something good that he just put out that I hope that everybody is kind of listening in on. And one thing I also want to talk about is, you was talking about like it's been a little minute since you put out something, but I do feel like being in that space, you always come across the area where it's quantity and quality. And what I mean by that is that, and sometimes you might have somebody that's right in the middle. But when I talk about quantity and quality, you're going to have certain, business owners, depending on what type of service that you have, you're all about quantity, all about numbers. We got to get this stuff out, period. And not saying that they overlook the quality, but sometimes the quantity is being output so much that the quality part
takes a sacrifice.
Takes a sacrifice. And then you have some people right in the middle. What you have a very unique, and you talked about it, and I was gonna bring it up, but you already brought it up, is that you service people, face to face. Like you train people. You're building your network there. As you're building that network, people are gonna put a face to a name and say, hey, I know Kunle Ayinde. This is, they're recommending people to come work with you.
Right.
Now you're putting your hand in the clothing game. That's building even more,
brand awareness.
Investments for yourself. And I think that's just, it's good that you're doing that because, I think that's just kind of, it can cross relate to a lot of different entrepreneurs out here, specifically. So I do feel like that was, just a good piece for you to kind of talk about. And then I wanted you to talk a little bit about somewhat of like your target audience. I mean, I feel like our audience will probably know who fits this category, but kind of be more direct of like who you would like your target audience to be. But I feel like it's very, very broad because if you're looking to kind of get in a gym, that essentially is your target audience. But it can be anybody. I kind of wanted you to talk about that a little bit.
So I think when I was first making clothes, essentially it wasn't really like allotted to be performance gear and stuff of that nature. It was more or less getting my brand on something and then like marketing it. And then it kind of developed to when I started getting better sourcing and learning more about garments and like fabrics and stuff, it became more, okay, I'm kind of in like a pocket of like athleisure, meaning like I want a good enough quality stuff where you feel like you can wear it and work out, but you also feel like you can just go, kick it with it, And I think as sometimes when you have a product, you don't know what the product is going to turn into, because your consumer can turn your product into something completely different that you never imagined. So there was times where I would see somebody wear a sweatsuit like this, and they tell me, I only wear this to my boy Jado. He says, I only wear this when I go to the airport when he travels. Mm-hmm. So this is like his travel suit. And then I see some people, they'll come to the gym and they'll wear it. So I'm like, okay, there's a little pocket in there that I'm kind of, serving. So I'd say, yeah, for sure, the people who want to be in the gym and exercise and have the comfortability. So yeah, it could be anyone from a 15-year-old to a 70-year-old. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I limit my target in terms of that. I think some of the fits that I had maybe put myself in that like 18 to 40-year-old range. But like I said, I've sold stuff to, like I said, as old as 70, as young as 12, 10. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just kind of doing some other stuff with some clothing with some young people. And I even want to do that too, because I've also realized with services and products and even the entertainment world, when you attach your stuff to youth, those people will now grow up with that product or service. Mm-hmm. So if it was a good product or service and I got you hooked at 10, you're probably still going to be with the product or service as long as you're still serving them to what they like, you know what I'm saying, growing later. So I think even as I develop, I'm going to expand into some youth stuff, but clothing is a big beast, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of perfect your wheel and then branch into anything. And I think that's with anything in general. Like with me, the clothing kind of happened simultaneously with the training, but I don't necessarily, I think that's just because they worked together. Yep. Now, if they were two different things, it would be kind of hard because now I'm juggling a lot of different things. And if it's only me, I'm going to need some help. So I think in this process, having help, like I've even hired interns that have helped me sometimes with training, sometimes with my clothing, because I used to do a lot of pop-up merches. So even some of the younger kids that I was training, I would hire them and do some intern work with them. Yep. So finding people that kind of align with some of the things that you're doing, and maybe they're not solidified with what they want to do, but they're willing to help, or maybe they're just a good marketer, or would you say ambassador for your thing. Sometimes those people are good people that you can bring on to your team to help them say, hey, you're already doing this for me. Dude, can you help me do this? Like somebody like David Hicks, he was a guy who got me connected because I've gotten my clothes on like people like Paige Beckers and Jalen Suggs. Mm-hmm. That was a happenstance of me. He was my partner, and when it came to getting his network and getting his people into some of my clothes, he helped me a lot with some of that stuff. So I think just having certain people and being willing to, give some people responsibilities, and also if some people don't fit those responsibilities, being able to say, hey, it just doesn't really work out for us.
Right.
So I think sometimes it's building a team when you're trying to expand and scale is the hardest part. But, when you give people certain responsibilities and they exceed them or just go beyond some of those things, and they have similar mindsets and similar, ideas and goals, you can bring them onto your team, and that's the only way you're going to really expand and scale. Yep. I think in terms of my industry, because I think now that I'm training, do I always want to work with like a 5-year-old to do training? Not always.
Don't want to limit yourself.
But I don't want to, I'm not going to limit myself and take away from the training that the 5-year-old needs. But I think ideally, I'd love to work with like high-level athletes all the time. Yeah. But I think if you want to scale and if you want to grow, you got to be able to touch the youth. You got to be able to touch the older people. So being able to grow and expand with your team when it comes to building something, I think is huge too. And something I'm still working on, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think even when I talk about like me taking a step back, some of that is too me trying to find different individuals that I can maybe put in place where I can take not necessarily stuff off my hands, but when you start growing, delegation is huge because you need to get that time back. You need to get that time back to be able to do something, because like you can wear a bunch of hats when you first start, but as you grow, sometimes you got to shift some of you wear all these hats so you realize what needs to be delegated and not how to get bullshitted. Because like if I already did something and I wasn't necessarily getting paid for it, now when I pay you to do it, I know what it should take to do it. I know what time, I know what effort it takes to do it. That's why I think in the beginning, you're going to wear a lot of hats, but you got to be able to delegate some of those hats out so you can get some of the time back, and you as an entrepreneur, the CEO, can actually make decisions within your building or in your brand instead of always having to work on the brand. You know what I'm saying? So
facts. And that's what, again, I mean, you touched on it. That's what comes with, laying the foundation. I think it's good to wear all of the hats, because if you're in a position to grow, essentially delegating that work is essentially, as an entrepreneur, that's what you want to do. Mm-hmm. That's what you want to do. And that's the last thing that I want you to kind of touch on a little bit is just, I guess somewhat of, do you have any aspirations? I feel like you do, but even with you being in partnership or collaboration with N1 Motion, is there any future collaborations that you have lined up, or, things that you kind of want to tell the audience about, any new drops? I kind of want to talk a little bit about that as well, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I would say right now I've done some collaborations. Like I've done stuff with, Josh Parks with Ghost Fit.
Okay, yeah.
I've done stuff with them. I've done some stuff with other brands, but I think for me, I'm going to kind of venture into doing some stuff with some high schools, like making some merch for different high schools that I'm working around doing some business stuff, training and stuff with already. Yep. So I think that's in the future for me, as well as I'm going to do some fall drops that I'm going to have getting prepared as we're going into the fall. Mm-hmm. And I think after I do that fall drop and kind of I'm going to do because I used to always drop on like pop-up shops. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't really like a rollout deck for some of my drops. Mm-hmm. I think that drop we had with you, or that photo shoot we did with you, some of those clothes was already like on my website and stuff. So it wasn't really like a real rollout. Yeah. So I think now that I'm kind of getting more into this content world and understanding content a little more, it's just flooding, with content, but also being more intentional with how I'm rolling out certain pieces, so I can create a story, create different lookbooks, and create just more of a community around certain drops and certain things like that. So I think doubling down and creating the story behind the sweat equity and the merch and stuff like that, as well as venturing into partnerships with different schools and potentially clubs and things of that nature.
For sure. Well, again, as we're closing out, I want to tell you I appreciate you for being on the platform and talking about your journey, your history of being a Minnesota native, and where it's taking you as a business owner now with Sweat Equity. So I wanted to tell you that, and again, I mean, this platform, essentially what I have this platform going for is not only to just highlight entrepreneurship, but it's to talk about what all human beings go through. I feel like in their day-to-day life, we always are trying to perfect our progression. We always are trying to find better ways to just I guess be the best individual that we can be in many different spaces. And there's always going to be a space that that we are kind of blurring in, and we're trying to make sure we're taking the right steps to make those things clear. Right. So I think this platform, again, this is season 2. And I'm looking forward to this platform to be again an impactful podcast for myself and many others that I bring on for future episodes. But again, thank you for being on, and if you have any shout outs or have anything that you want to, I'm definitely going to tag Kunle, but you can tell them where to find you.
Okay, yeah, you can follow me on social media, Kunle, KUNLE _Ayinde, AYINDE, on Instagram, social medias, Sweat Equity Performance, on everything. That's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Sweat Equity Performance. I guess another collab I didn't think about is Perfecting Progression. We going whenever that merch comes. Just know I got you on that too. That. So
we tapped in, man. I mean your name came up. With me being a coach at De La Salle, they said Kunle is over here training some of the kids, and even with Hitman 7-on-7. So it's a lot of stuff that's gonna be out there, bro. And I think we gotta. If you ask me, I feel like we got a good community, of people.
For sure.
That I know, and I think that we can make a big push for a lot of different business owners and things that we do in the community, period. Yeah. So, make sure you guys tap into, episode 1 with Malik Rucker.
Shout out to Malik, man, doing big things, man.
For sure. Shout out to Malik, and make sure you guys tap into this episode as well. Definitely on TikTok, perfecting dot progression, on Instagram as well. Check us out on Perfecting Progression there, and on YouTube. You want to check this out? Check this video out on YouTube as well. You can find it there. But again, thank you again, Kunle, and make sure you guys tap in and look forward to the next episode, and hopefully everybody has a good one.
Yeah, shout out One Goal Media, man, live and direct, bringing that production. One Goal Media, always, man.
For everybody bougie, latest trends and fashions. I'd rather keep it a buck, 100 if you ask me. I was trying to pay the bills just like last week. I was trying to sell a deal just like last week. Trying to run plays and run it up like the mathletes. It's in my DNA to have hope and make a way. Good energy will hit that MJ fade away.